beautiful people.
Oh, Cynt, it's so good to be with you. I have been circling your career for so long now, and I never in a million years thought Michael C. Bush, son of Booker T, would let me speak with you today because I know you're best friends.
We are best friends.
You are best friends.
I love Michael Bush. I love this organization, and I'm so happy to be here. Are you happy to be here? Oh my gosh. Yes.
I am happy you're here too. We're here to talk about your book.
Okay, let's talk about the book.
We're here to talk about your book.
Yes.
It's an extraordinary book. It's deeply personal. It started as a form of a cancer diary. Spoiler alert, you survive. You're
I
healthy
survived.
today.
11 years later, I am still here.
All right.
Yes.
It tells the story of, it starts with your diagnosis just the day before your 51st birthday. You got it in right under the wire. You'd been the president of AT&T in North Carolina at the time, and you've expanded it to tell other stories about your life, your deeply American black family life, generations of struggle and investment in each other and the world, Jim Crow opportunity, some bad impulses in there too. But mostly it's a story of faith.
Yes.
And your sense of faith and action and vigorous action in the world, and that's where I want us to end today and really dig into that, because I don't think we really do that.
I love it. I love it. I kind of describe the book when people say, what is it really about?
Yeah.
I said, in short, it's a story about how God and great people always show up in my life. That's what it's really, really about.
That is and I would say also, this is perfect for book clubs. Take it to church, take it to anybody who's suffering. And it's also a user guide for anybody, majority culture, in this particular case, white men who want to be better allies to black women.
Yes.
So if you give that to a person like that in your life, you can expense it.
You've been chosen. Do it. Yes, I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to begin our conversation today the way you began the book. So here I'm going to quote from you. Whenever I have a new boss or colleague or friend, I make it a point to explain to them up front who I am and how I was raised, because you can't understand the way I talk, the way I act, without a few key pieces of my history. So I'm going to take you at your word, and we're going to start there.
Okay, let's start there. Let's start there.
Because that's actually what they asked you to do. They asked you to find other ways where you have been chosen, where you have been tested, and where people have shown up for you.
Exactly, because it started out, as you know, the book started out as me just wanting to share my cancer journey. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to take my whole journal and put it out there for people going through cancer, anybody touched by it, anybody who has a family member going through it. And then the agents and the publisher said, hold on. There's so much more to this story. And you've been chosen so many times prior to cancer, and that's what equipped me to be able to handle it. So we want to tell all the rest of it. And so I said, okay, let's tell all the rest of it. Just catch me during the off season, and I'll give you the stories because, I'm trying to run a basketball team. So catch me during the off season, and we can have our conversations. And so we did.
As a professional writer, to learn that you cranked this book out, so deeply personal, so much work, on Fridays during 3 months in your off season was a humbling piece of information to receive.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.
So take us back, please, to Birmingham, Alabama, and to the feet, to the history of Carolyn Estelle.
Yes, so I was born in Birmingham, and so my parents left Birmingham when I was 3 months old. And if you know your civil rights history, you know there was a 16th Street Baptist church that was bombed in Birmingham where four little girls lost their lives. Well, my mom and dad actually have 4 little girls and 2 boys, and they left Birmingham 3 years prior to that because they did not want their kids growing up in the Jim Crow segregated South, and didn't want us to experience what they had experienced. So we moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, and I landed in. Is San Francisco in the house? Okay, I'll do one more. Is Richmond, California in the house? Oh my gosh, that's amazing, because you usually get Richmond, Virginia. Okay, so we landed in the Easter Hill Public Housing Projects in Richmond. And the things that you can imagine, back in those days in a public housing project happened. I saw the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly. Mm-hmm. But I always describe it as my mother put 2 books in my hand. She put a math book in one hand and a Bible in the other, and told us if we kept our head in these 2 books, we'd make it out. And at the time, you don't know what out is, but it was out of poverty. And so even though a lot of crazy things happen, as you'll read about in the book with my father, my mother kept us very grounded and gave me a good foundation. And it's the foundation that I said, I want to give my kids.
Yeah.
That if I give them nothing else that matters, I want to give them a good foundation in Christ and a good education. Everything else that they get, cars and all that, it doesn't matter. Those are the two things that I think they can stand on.
You have had an extraordinary series of firsts, but you did, and we should go, some of them are really fun and extraordinary, like the first black cheerleader at UC Berkeley, where Michael Bush did not get to see you perform there because he didn't.
Oh, yeah, but I understand. He showed a picture of me with my big fro.
Okay.
Okay? Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I want to get into that, but you mentioned your dad, and I think it's an important part of the story. I grew up in a violent home, and I often struggle to sort out the legacy of that and the imprint on me. But you have really done this work in this book for anybody who had that experience. So take us back, please, to the summer of 1975 and William Smith's role in your life. That was your father.
Yes, the summer of 1975 was a pivotal summer for me. My brother was graduating from high school. Education was everything to my mom, so he was the third one to graduate, so the third child. And that day, my father learned that my mother was going to divorce him. After all those years of domestic violence, 20 years of domestic violence, and I'm talking bloody, just horrible violence. And so he found out she was going to divorce him, and he went crazy in the house that day. And it was my brother's graduation day. And so, we had to call the police. We had to get in there to try to break it up and all that. And then I remember my mother telling everybody just to clean up and that the police would take us to the graduation, that we were still going to the graduation. And so we went, my brother graduated, but we couldn't go back home because it was so violent. And we went and spent the summer with my sister, my oldest sister, who had got married at 19 years old to get away from...
Is that Cassandra?
Yes, Cassandra, to get away from the house. And so we spent the summer with her in a one-bedroom apartment building, unfortunately with the person above us beating his wife every day. We had to experience that. And so my mother's prayer, though, was that we would make it back home before school started, because, of course, education was everything. Yeah. And so the week before school started, we made it back home. We walked in, and so we had one of those deluxe units in the projects, okay?
Yeah.
6 kids and, 2 parents, so we had the deluxe unit. There was one mattress in there for me and my younger sister to sleep on. My father had taken everything. And so, we were young, and I ran track, so Cynt the Sprint was my nickname. And so we come in, all of our trophies are gone, all of that. And so we were so upset as teenagers, and school is getting ready to start. And Ellen, I remember what my mother did. And she just told us to be quiet, because we're like, where's our stuff? Where are the clothes? School is starting. I was going to be junior in high school, head cheerleader. I had a brace on my nose from when my father had broken my nose that summer. And she just told everybody to be quiet. And it was quiet, just like it is right now. And she said, all I want is peace of mind. God will provide. And slowly but surely, things started coming back to the house. People gave us clothes. Furniture started showing up. And I went to school. And when I went to school, and this is why I love educators, I think they are some of the best people on the planet. I love them. Those teachers, it was 3 teachers and a principal, saw me with that big brace on my nose, and I was head cheerleader. My mother said, just go and do what I was supposed to do. So I did. And so that's kind of like not normal, okay? So I'm out there and I'm cheering and I got my moves and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
With this brace on your nose.
Silver brace on my nose. And so these teachers came and they wanted to know what was going on. And so they got with my mom. They knew she had a desire for her kids to go to college, all of that. And the rest literally is history. I ended up getting 5 full scholarships to the college of my choice. They got me involved in everything. And I chose the University of California at Berkeley, not because it's the #1 public institution in the world, but because it was close to home. And one of my scholarships came with a car and all that, and so I wanted to be close to my mom. And then I had a great experience at Berkeley. I remember the first day I stepped onto that campus. I'm this little kid from the projects. The buildings are so big. And all I could think about are the 4 words that I still live by: dream, focus, pray, and act. And so I had big dreams. I was standing on that campus because of my mother's dreams, these dreams that the educators had for me, and I knew I had to be big. I knew I had to step up and be big. and do what I needed to do. I put my boyfriend on hold for 4 years. He literally called me my first week in college to tell me he had transferred schools so he could be near me because he was in Central Valley, California. And he said, surprise, I'm across the bridge at San Francisco State University so I can be close to you. I said, hold up, boyfriend. Hold up, boyfriend.
Surprise back.
I said, surprise back. I will call you the day I graduate.
That's right,
This is
yeah.
my first week in college because I had to focus. I mean, maybe I was taking it to the extreme, but I knew this was a huge opportunity for me.
Yeah.
Considering where I came from. And I focused. And so I was hair cheerleader, I was in a sorority, I mean, all that. 13 job offers when I got out of school, but the first thing I did after I graduated, I called him. And I told him, hey, I graduated, I'm back. And he said, who is this? I said, it's Cynt. He said, Cynt who? And I said, boy, don't try to act like you don't know who I am. I graduated today. And he says, I haven't talked to you in almost 4 years. I said, I know, but I told you I was going to call you today. I graduated. I said, I just graduated at like 2 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock. It's like 1 hour, okay? and so then he tried to act like he didn't know who I was. I told him my mom was having a party at 6 o'clock. I said, she's still in the projects, but I'm going to help her get out. I mean, she did not need my help to get out. My mother was working 2 or 3 jobs. My mother's amazing, but I wanted to help her. And so I said, the party's at 6. And he said, well, I'm engaged. Well, that's the wrong answer. Because I kept my end of the bargain. And he said when he hung up the phone, she said, that's your girlfriend from high school, huh? And she said, you better go to the party. And so in April, we'll be married 40 years. You can't go to the party. So when we move our kids into college or our nieces and nephews, my husband says, don't you have a phone call to make? This is where you're supposed to tell them you'll call them in 4 years. That's like a tradition in our family. So I had a tremendous sense of focus, and thank goodness I still do. And then I started working for AT&T.
Oh my Lord. In your mind, you kept him waiting 1 hour.
1 hour. I kept him waiting 1 hour, not 4 years. I did what I said I was going to do.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh. We're going to get into your health journey in just a second, but since you brought us up to AT&T, and I think it's really important, just to note, 30 plus years.
36 years.
36 year
Well,
career?
okay, I'm a big math geek. I mean, I love people.
Yeah,
I love
math
numbers.
and the Bible.
Though. Yeah, math, book, and a Bible. 13,088 days I was at AT&T.
Wow.
That's a long time.
So, and you went from, it was a telephone company.
Yes.
I mean, you were the first black woman that had been trained to climb telephone poles so that you could supervise that work.
Yes.
And when you left the business, it was, an entertainment conglomerate.
Yes, it was literally a phone company when I started. And so
Right.
I watched us go through so many
Right.
transitions. But the one thing that was constant was leading people and
Yeah.
taking care of people.
Yeah.
So no matter what transitions you're going through, no matter how the industry evolves, it still comes down to taking care of people and making it a great place to work for people, no matter what is happening in the environment.
That's right. I do want to just remark on your beautiful boots. I actually wore a pair similar to them
thank
yesterday.
you.
You may remember.
y'all see
And
red boots?
your beautiful braids. Now, why am I complimenting those two items, please?
Because my very first week at work, my boss's boss came and told me that I could not wear red shoes, and she told me to take down my braids because they were too ethnic and it wasn't appropriate for the workplace. And she gave me this picture of what I should look like. I was 21 years old. I was on this fast-track management program. She was very well-intentioned. I mean, she wanted me to do well in this program.
Right.
And so she wanted me to look the part, and braids weren't a part of the look. And so I went home that night, 21 years old. I stayed up with my sister Cassandra and my mom all night because, it takes a while to, get this beautiful. And so I stayed up. So I stayed up all night taking the braids out. My sister brought me some little black shoes, and so I got rid of my red shoes and my braids. And here I am, years later, with my braids and my red shoes. Yes.
And you have a very, very big job. So, 30 years, fast-track leadership programs occasionally do work very, very well. You've had extraordinary impact at AT&T. But, from no braids to braids, it's also sort of the history of identity and belonging in the workforce, too.
Yes.
You were there to see it all.
I saw all of it. And, 20 years later, or 19 years later, when I got the call to be an officer, is when it kind of started up all again, where, and again, well-intentioned. When she told me I was getting the big promotion, my husband was listening. We just, couldn't believe it. I mean, an officer in a corporation, it's only 110 officers and 250,000 people. And she says, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to cut your hair. I left a magazine on your desk.
Oh, God.
And it had all these black people on the magazine in white. And she said, and, I think you would look great with white. It'd go with your complexion. That's fine. She says, and, I think you should get a lot of St. John. And so she explained to me what the clothing line was about. She says, and then I need you to be Cynthia or Cindy, not Cynt, because nobody knows what Cynt is. So at this point, I'm getting a lightweight attitude, just lightweight. Okay, I'm like, this is a problem. Because all I can think about is 19 years ago, I had to take off my red shoes and my braids. And so then she said, and you can't use words like blessed. I want you to say lucky.
Okay.
And that's where it kind of crossed over, because I don't think I'm lucky. I think I'm blessed. And then she said, and I need all the people out of your office because you just got to tone it down a bit. And so she basically started to tell me to be somebody who I was not.
Right.
And that's when I said, no, I'm going to turn down the promotion. And my husband was in the background saying, I have a barber. We can get it cut. Don't worry about it.
No.
I'm like, no, this is kind of where it stops. And I turned down the officer promotion.
Okay.
And a few minutes later, the head guy called me.
Yeah.
And he said, Cynt, and he put the emphasis on T. And he said, you don't have to change. I know who you are. I love who you are. And then he just went on to talk about me as a person of faith. I mean, he described the authentic me. And he said, that's the person who the board elected to be an officer in this corporation. Please say yes, because that's who needs to show up tomorrow. And I said yes. And I've been me ever since.
That's right.
Yes.
User guide for allies. You can expense that. So I want, if you wouldn't mind, to read your first memo.
Okay.
That tells people in your team, in your organization, that you have cancer. It's January 3rd, 2011.
Oh, I know exactly when this is. Okay. Some of you have probably heard by now that I was diagnosed last week with colon cancer. This finding was a result of my first colonoscopy, the day before my 51st birthday, December 14th. I had major surgery on December 20th to remove the diseased part of the colon, and ultimately the pathology report found cancer in 3 lymph nodes and determined that I have stage 3 colon cancer. Procedures are already scheduled for this week to determine more about the whereabouts of the cancer, etc. Chemotherapy will be a part of the treatment plan. I will definitely beat this, as I am uniquely equipped for the battle. I hope I have faith, good common sense, a detail-oriented skill set, aggressiveness, a great employer and health plan, wonderful family and friends, and that includes all of you. I live in one of the best places in the country regarding medical care, so I am indeed blessed. And above all, I believe in the power of prayer. I will have just one more awesome testimony when this is all over, and my 3 teenagers and husband will have a lot more faith in God. Please keep me and my family in your thoughts and prayers. I've told my work team that the best thing they can do for me is to keep it moving and execute on our 2011 agenda. They will call on David, my boss. You got to get the work done. They will call on David and some of you for help. I will be keeping David and Jim, those are my bosses, posted on my condition regularly. Thanks in advance for your love, prayers, and support. This will indeed be a happy new year. That's what I wrote.
I know. Can you imagine getting that? It's brimming with authenticity. It's absolutely in your voice. It all happened over the holidays. I know you love Christmas.
Yes, it was crazy. It was. I was actually supposed to lead a big event. I was the first African American chair of the North Carolina Chamber. So we had our big economic forecast forum coming up. I was supposed to give a big award to Erskine Bowles, the chief of staff in the White House, and it was just a big event, but I didn't show up to it. because I had to go and see the doctor because I got that call saying I have bad news.
Yeah, no. And I know that your work with the Mavericks does not play a big role in the book, but since you're here, I do want to ask about your work there.
Go Mavs.
Yeah, right.
We made it to the Western Conference Finals. We're like one of the top 4 teams in the NBA. You got to ask me about my Mavs.
Absolutely.
And you will not see red boots during the season. You will see blue boots.
Okay, all right, I will take it. I'm going to have to get some blue boots too.
Yes.
But I did want to talk about that moment because several things happened at once. And there's a very funny scene I won't get into where her friends show up, and you were going to laugh out loud when you see how Yvonne behaved. That's all I'm going to say. But the first thing you did is you called your mom.
Yes.
And tell her how she reframed that moment for you, please.
Yes, when I called my mom and I was so upset and my husband was standing there, I was crying because I just got off the phone with the doctor. And I told her, I said, Mom, the report came back. They said I have stage 3 colon cancer, 1 lymph node away from stage 4. In my lymph node and blood vessels, I'm going to need chemo. And my mother paused and she said, honey, this is for his glory. She said, this is for his glory. God will get the glory out of this. You have a big, high-profile job. It will be public. You will tell this story. People will watch how God will take you through this. It's for his glory. You will tell this story one day. So be encouraged. All sickness is not unto death. She said, you're going to be just fine. And then she got off the phone. And I have to tell you, Ellen, I can receive it now because, of course, she was right. Okay?
Yes, that must have
but
been
at
hard
that
to hear.
time,
Yeah.
well, I was trying to have a pity party.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear all about this is for his glory, and I was going to tell the story. It's like they just told me that, I need chemo or else I might not live.
Yeah.
So I was trying to have a pity party, and so I needed her to break down, and we needed to cry together, and I was getting ready to call the pastor. Like, we were getting ready to, really get sad about this.
You want to summon the
Right, it's like, come on now. This is bad news. And she said, it's for his glory. Now, I understand that they said when she hung up the phone, she started crying, and she called my sister.
Yep.
But even when she called my sister, she was very optimistic and hopeful, and she just knew that this was going to be something that would be told one day.
Yeah. And she wasn't, and your boss has called too, and I want to ask about that, but she wasn't wrong once you got there. That one of the things that really strikes me about the diary is that you're also very candid about the fact that you have earned your way into a position of unique privilege and access. You mentioned the health care you have, and Black women across the country, across the world do not. They consistently get subpar care, even from pain management and access to cutting-edge treatments. And the diary itself is a document of obviously gratitude and faith, but also self-advocacy.
Oh, I had to advocate. When I went to see the surgeon, and he saw the film and all that from the images of the tumor, he said, oh, I've been doing this over 20 years. This is not cancerous, and don't cancel your plans for the holidays because we were going to go back home to California for the holidays. He said, you have time. Let's come back in February.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't leave his office. And after an hour and a half, he asked my husband, he says,
She's going
to leave?
Be leaving.
And so then they gave me a tour of his office, the big medical library, and I guess they were going to usher me out after that. And I went right back in his office and sat down. And he said, is she going to leave? My husband looked and he said, she's not going to leave. And I said, I want it out, and I want it out now. And this is on a Friday.
Yeah.
And I said, I want surgery this weekend or Monday. I want it out. And so they called around all these hospitals, and he said, well, this time of year we have a lot of tummy tucks, a lot of facelifts, just a lot of things, really to get, people get done at the end of the year. And I said, well, you need to squeeze me into one of those tummy tucks or facelifts. Like you got to squeeze me in there.
Oh, my Lord.
And after an hour and a half, they found a hospital, which actually was my hospital, right by my house. I had surgery that Monday morning at 6 a.m. because I wouldn't leave his office. And then after the surgery, he said, don't worry about the pathology report. I said, no, well, I want to know when is it coming back? And he says, well, he calculated, he said, well, Christmas. I said, okay, well, call me the day after Christmas. I need the results. And he didn't because he was very, very busy. And then when he called me, he said, I have bad news. So he apologized for taking so long to call me. So twice he's told me he didn't think I had it. And that was his professional opinion, and I'm okay with that. And so then when he told me what he told me, and he said, you must hate me right now.
Yeah.
I said, I actually...
Mr. Tummy Tuck? Yeah.
I said,
we all hate you.
I said, I actually don't, though, because when you think about it, I advocated for myself.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even going to let him get away with putting us off. I mean, honestly, and it was psychological too, because I felt like the tumor was just growing
Yeah.
bigger every time. And I kept telling them it's growing by the second. Like, I'm sitting here with you, like, it's growing right now.
Yeah.
I want it out. Like, I want it out. And so he said, you must hate me right now. I said,
have the same
actually, I don't. Because for somebody who, in his professional opinion, really thought I didn't have cancer, he did his job. He biopsied everything he was supposed to do. He didn't cut any corners. He did his job. He didn't let his opinion stop him from doing his job.
Right.
And I'm glad he didn't. Because he found what he found. I had to find the upside of it, because you have to advocate for yourself.
Yep.
And that's what I learned,
Yeah.
and thank God I know how to do that. And thank goodness for good health care. I had so many scans the first week.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure $1 million worth. And I told my husband, I've had so many scans, I feel like I'm going to glow in the dark. I said, what do people do that don't have health care?
That's right.
I mean, I had a big concern about
They
that.
die.
And he said they die.
They die. They do.
He said they die.
They do.
So I'm a big advocate now, pushing for health care for people in underserved communities and all that.
You're also a big sports fan now, aren't you? That I know you
Yes.
did not see this coming, but we should talk about it because it's so spectacular and so unlikely that you come out of whatever sort of limbo retirement state you were in.
Yes.
And two people. How is it possible? Two people, Mark Cuban, and Cynt Marshall, didn't even know each other.
No, we did not.
How did he not know you? I can't even believe that.
Well, see, I'm glad you say it like that. People usually say, you didn't know Mark
him?
Cuban. I said, well, he didn't know me.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I'm sure you probably know that the Mavericks had been beset by some really serious allegations. Sports Illustrated had an amazing story, and we don't have to get into that, but if you want to, we can. But it was really a hot mess.
Yes.
What made you trust him that you could do what you knew that you needed to be done to fix this toxic culture?
Well, when he described what was happening in there and described the Sports Illustrated article, and I had read the article on the way and had actually kind of decided I wasn't going to do it. And he was so sincere about wanting a culture change. And after 55 minutes, what resonated with me is he was really asking me to help him create a great place to work. This was all on the business side. I had been engaged in that work, believe it or not, with Michael Bush at AT&T, and right before I retired, we made Fortune's 100 Best Places to Work list for the first time ever. So I had done a lot of work. I knew what it took to make a great place to work.
Yeah.
And so when I started thinking about it, I said, just like when I got my cancer battle, I could be uniquely qualified to do this. I know people that have done this work.
Yeah.
We've done it together. And so, but what really got me, as I was leaving Mark's office, 2 women stopped me and told me their stories. And they said, are you the person who Mark Cuban said is going to come in and save us? Because he had met with employees that morning, cried with employees. And I said, I don't have the power to save you. I mean, I know who does. I don't have the power to save you. But I think I could help. I'm going to go home and pray about it. And they told me their stories, and then I came in the next morning just to talk to Mark. I was there 3 hours before he even knew I was in the building, because people were telling me their stories. And the more they talked, the more I thought about the things that I had experienced and what it takes for a great place to work. And these people hadn't been listened to, and they hadn't been invested in. It was not a diverse organization. It wasn't inclusive. I know how to bring all of that together, thank goodness, with a lot of help from a lot of people and with the work of this organization. And when Mark walked in the conference room, when he found out I was finally there, he goes, so is the answer yes? I said, let's do this. And so I did it for the sisterhood, but I also did it for the brotherhood. And then I brought in people with me. We made the changes we needed to make. There were no women or people of color on my leadership team. We put together a 100-day plan. Within 100 days, I had 50% women, 50% people of color at my leadership table. We put go ahead and clap for the women. We set out a vision that said we would set the global standard in the NBA for diversity and inclusion. Our workplace promise is every voice matters and everybody belongs. We started a journey to create a great place to work. We put together a 100-day plan that focused on modeling zero tolerance and expressed Mavs women's agenda, culture transformation, operational effectiveness, gender pay equity, all that. And we rallied the employees. We made the departures that we needed to make. We made a few quite a few. And we created a great place to work.
Well, I hope that's going to be your next book. if you're up to it, because that's going to be a great story.
Awesome.
Just about out of time. We could just spend a couple of seconds, I don't want to give it the short shrift, to talk a little bit about what you've learned about how to talk to people who are suffering, or how to bring, wherever we are, and the way we think about how we interact with the mysterious world, whether you're a person of a specific faith or you think about it in a more secular way, how to bring that sense of spirit and awe and wonder into our work, because I don't think we get to talk about it enough.
Right, here's the way I look at it. We talk a lot about authenticity, which is one of our values at the Mavs. And when you say authenticity, when you're committing to that, you're committing to a place where people can truly bring in who they are. And so I often say the person who gets up out of bed in the morning, everything they bring, including their faith, the baggage they have, the issues they have, the positive things they have, all of it, that's the person who should be able to show up into the workplace. That's the person who should show up on the screen. And so I tell my employees now, I'm not sure I want you to come in your pajamas, but I do want that person who gets up out of bed in the morning, because that's what makes it so rich and so powerful, that we all get to do life together. We all get to do work life together, bringing who we are. We're not the same. We bring different things. And so I don't go around laying hands on people or trying to baptize people, but I am a woman of faith. And if you're a person of faith, if you're a person, whoever you are, that's who needs to show up, because it makes us all better. Just do you. So that's my big hashtag, is hashtag do you.
Oh, man. What a great place to end. Cynt Marshall, you're such a gift.
Hold up.
Oh, I love you.
Hold up.
Okay,
Michael's here.
my buddy.
People, I'm only going to ask you to do one thing. Get up on your feet for this remarkable woman.
Oh my gosh. I love you. I love you. If we had worked together, I don't think I would have taken that job at the Mavs. I knew the recipe. He's the reason I took the job at the Mavs. I knew the recipe. I know the recipe for a great place to work. I love you.
All right.
Okay.